Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about the Williamson County Animal Center. I'm Debbie Sims and I'll be your host today. And my guest is our shelter director, Ondrea Johnson. Hi, Ondrea.
Hey, Debbie. Good morning.
We've had a great year at the shelter.
We did.
2019 was wonderful for us, and I thought our viewers might want to go over some of the things that happened during the year that were momentous and changed things for us. We took in about 200 more animals during the year than we did the year before. Mm-hmm. But in one category of community cats, we went from like 100 to 1,150.
Yes.
So tell us about community cats, what they are, and how this program has affected our town.
Well, Debbie, as the viewers probably know, because I harp on this all of the time, we have a stray and outdoor homeless or unowned cat population here in Williamson County. And so we started looking into this problem in 2018, seeing what other communities were doing, trying to find best practices for dealing with this cat population. And what we came up with was the Community Cat Program. And there's several nationally recognized organizations, as you know, Best Friends, Alley Cat Allies, and several others that sort of have a model for how shelters can address these issues in communities. And so we were really fortunate this past year, we were able to get a grant to spay and neuter all of these community cats that came through the shelter doors, and we're able to hire someone to coordinate that program. And so now there are close to 1,200 cats in our community who are cared for by community members, but may or may not be owned by one specific person, who now will not be reproducing this spring. So we are anxiously awaiting to see if our kitten intake population drops a little bit in this year.
And that's the goal. And I think those are strays. We classify people bringing in groups of kittens as strays.
Right.
And it creates a huge problem at the shelter during the summer months. It usually starts when?
Well, you know, March usually now is our beginning of our kitten season. Historically, kitten season has run from April through about October. With the warmer temperatures here in the south, we see kitten season usually lasts us from about March to December. So we have about a 2-month break usually at the shelter. As you know, Debbie, when kittens come in, a lot of times we struggle with ringworm. Ringworm is an issue for kittens. It takes a lot of extra care and treatment to treat ringworm. We struggle with upper respiratory infections because groups of cats being housed together tend to get stressed, and then stress causes upper respiratory in cats. So it's really imperative that we are able to kind of pare down the population of cats that are needing our assistance to be housed in the shelter.
That's true. And in the summer months, it's just heartbreaking to have 350 kittens surrendered at the shelter, and you have to have a huge foster network,
right? Because
many of them don't have the mother with them. They can't eat. They can't maintain their own body temperature. And so we have these fosters we call on that have to feed them every 2 hours and keep them warm and nurse them into the world, basically, because they're picked up as newborns. So there's a huge education component to community cats, and I know people may have seen the signs along McHatcher. Have you got stray cats? And then all over the county, we had like 40 signs that said free spay neuters for outdoor cats. So that component is a big part, because I don't think people realized that it was that easy for us with implementing a program. The first 3 months we did it, we basically got 1,000 cats trapped.
Right.
Trapping is part of it.
Absolutely.
So is trapping handled? How is trapping handled? Is it staffing? Is it the public?
Well,
what do you need to make it effective?
We would really like for people to do their own trapping. We will teach you how to do it. We loan out traps. We can give you all sorts of pointers, show you how to operate the trap. We obviously don't have the staff to go out and trap cats at every property across the county. So if people are depending on us to get that done, it would take quite a while, and no telling how many litters would be born while we were waiting. But we are happy to help people do that if there's some extenuating circumstance, we do have volunteers that will, if you have a large cat population, we have volunteers that will come out and help you get that colony under control. But we really want to empower the public to do that for themselves, Debbie. It's a skill that once you know how to do it, if you have a cat come up that, maybe wandered onto your property, it's something that you can always use going forward.
And we know that people should go ahead and address the problem if they do see a cat in the neighborhood, because I know it's a common thing last summer to hear, well, I'm feeding a couple of cats in my neighborhood, but they're not mine.
Right.
Well, they belong to our community. So as a community, we're starting to address this.
Absolutely.
And the impact is huge, because a cat can have kittens 2 to 3 times a year.
Right.
As young as 4 months old.
Right.
So one unaltered cat and its offspring all have kittens. It's like 140,000 kittens.
Right. And if a litter is born in March, those females in that litter are reproducing by the fall. So we're getting their first litters in by the end of the year. So if you do see cats, even though kitten season usually starts around in March, we would like for you to be bringing those community cats on into us and let us get them altered before breeding season begins.
It's a lot easier to catch one female and neuter and spay her and put her back in her community than it is to take care of a litter of 7 kittens.
Right.
For 4 months through all the illnesses that kittens get in captivity. So look at it that way. We'd rather take care of 1 than take care of 7.
Absolutely.
Because it creates a burden on the staff.
It does. And that brings up a good point, Debbie. If people find kittens, I know that people commonly come to us and say, well, I watched and the mom's not around. Most times the mother is around. The mothers are very savvy to being trapped. So they typically know when you're present. They won't come around. They won't feed their kittens. What we really want people to do is, rather than bring us the litter of kittens, we have a method where we can trap the mother using the kittens. We'd rather help you do that so that we get the mom, because as soon as you remove her kittens, she's going to go back into heat and reproduce another litter.
And the one piece of this whole trap, neuter, return program that gets people and causes the most conversation is the returning to the community, because they think, well, this cat doesn't belong here, but it's thriving.
Right.
It's fat. It's got a food source.
Right.
It's semi-friendly in most cases. You see it around every day. So it is part of the community, and we do not have a leash law for cats.
Right.
So they can roam at large in our county. And that's a part that a lot of people have a problem with, is you're going to take it and neuter it, but you're going to bring it back?
Right.
So what do you say to people when they say, why are you bringing it back?
Well, a lot of people have outdoor cats, and one of the things that I hear all the time is, well, this cat just started showing up. I think whoever owned it moved and left it. I never saw it before, so it's obviously lost. Cats don't typically get lost. As you know, Debbie, we had one situation where we took a cat to an outdoor colony, and he traveled 11 miles to get back to his original home. So cats really don't get lost as much as they get misplaced. So if you're seeing a cat in your neighborhood that is friendly, well cared for, obviously someone is taking care of that cat, and they may just let their cat out every morning. They may make their cat stay outside all the time. And of course, as you said, that's really not against the law in the county. So we want that cat to be in its natural environment. And just because it lives outdoors does not mean it doesn't have a home. So what we say is we're returning that cat to its outdoor home. Now, we have had cats that come in that we can tell this cat doesn't have a food source, or there's some other illness going on. Maybe it's got an injury or something where it's not healthy to put that cat back in its environment. And we, of course, will keep those cats and treat them if we can, and place them for adoption when it's appropriate. And those decisions are made 100% by our veterinary staff.
So when a cat does come in through the TrapNeuter return program, it could be diverted to adoption at some point or get further medical care. But for the most part, the cats come in early in the morning into our shelter on a day when we have geared up to do a lot of spay neuters, and they receive a rabies shot, a spay neuter surgery, and their ear is tipped.
Right.
We talk about ear tipping is that our viewers may not know that is a universal sign that a cat has been spayed and neutered. It comes in handy.
It does come in handy. And we also microchip. Anyone that comes to our clinic is microchipped. So if we get in a cat that has an ear tip, we immediately know that cat has already been spayed or neutered. We know that it's been given a rabies shot. We can scan it for the microchip and see, okay, this is a cat that has come back into the shelter a couple of times, so it's obviously in a location where people are not going to tolerate it being outdoors. So we can work with the community a little bit differently when we have a cat like that. That's the reason that we do the microchipping. But the ear tipping is, if you are out in a community and you see a cat with an ear tip, you don't have to worry about that cat because that cat it's being cared for by someone, it's there on purpose, and it's already been through the program. I can leave that cat be and let it just exist as it has been.
Are there colonies of cats that are a little more wild? We call them feral. Are there feral colonies in Williamson County?
Absolutely. There are feral colonies all over Williamson County, and I tell people all the time, you probably interact in locations where there are colonies that are being managed or cared for, and you don't even know it because you won't normally see a feral cat. They stay out of view. Occasionally, I'll have somebody say, oh, I saw a cat at this grocery store or whatever, and it is true that where there is a food source, so anywhere, restaurants and groceries and places like that where food gets put into the dumpsters, there will typically be cat colonies close by because there are mice and rat problems there, and those working cats they're doing what they do. They keep those rat and mice populations down, and they sometimes get some of that food from the same food source that the mice are getting their food from. But those cats, we encourage people, don't try to approach them. Occasionally we will very seldom get someone that maybe would try to catch a kitten and get scratched or something. And those cats are truly feral. They're not socialized to people. It would be akin to picking up a raccoon or any other wild animal.
Wow. So stay away from a cat that seems a little shy and is eaten out of a dumpster. It's probably a feral cat. And as much as we'd like to think it could be a pet, it may not. And it needs to stay feral, and it will always be feral. We also have another program for people that have barns and farm property where sometimes we get cats in that are good barn cats, and we allow them to adopt a barn cat from us. Does that work for relocation as well?
So if we do have a cat that needs to be relocated, or sometimes we'll get a cat, as I said, that comes in and maybe it's got an upper respiratory or some other extenuating circumstance where it's not going to go back out into its original home. We will treat that cat, but then it really isn't a cat that is going to go into adoption because it's not been handled a lot. It might not be completely feral, but we know that it's lived outdoors all of its life. It's not really wanting to sit in your lap and be petted. We will put that into our barn cat program, and we do have farms around the county and outside the county even who are looking for working cats to control rodent populations in their barns and in their feed mills. And you can come by and pick up a barn cat. Most people don't. I was asked this question yesterday. Most people don't pick out a barn cat. They just come and say they need one, and we get them one in a box and bring it to them. So. But you can certainly, if you have some certain requirements, I know Sam Anderson, our community cat coordinator, would be happy to help.
Right. Sam has spent the entire year doing nothing but educating people, along with all the helping with trapping, renting traps, that kind of thing. And the community has really embraced the cat program. We wouldn't have had 1,200 pass through because we haven't been trapping those. The public has, and they've been bringing them in. So it's an ongoing process. We'll be continuing it in the new year.
Yes, absolutely. We are really hopeful to really double down on our efforts, Debbie. We've had some really great responses, as you said, from the community. We've had some vets and vet techs in the community that heard about what we're doing and are really on board and wanting to get more involved this year. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to even increase the numbers of cats that we are able to spay and neuter this year.
That's amazing, and the impact just changing one cat has on the community is amazing. So just imagine 1,200. It's going to be a process of going back and working these areas where we know they are, and we couldn't even address them all last year. So development has taken a toll. And
absolutely.
Subdivisions are coming in and growth, and when they come in and there are cats living in the woods, the cats don't have anywhere to go, and then the new tenants go, well, I don't want all these cats in my neighborhood. Well, they were there first.
Right.
So we try to work with everybody and work through their situation. I hope people take the community cat program to heart and give us a call and talk to Samantha about it, and let us know their particular problem, and we can help them through it.
Yep.
Another biggie that happened this past year is the announcement of a new shelter being built for Williamson County. So this will be located out the Machatcher Extension on Old Charlotte Pike. So tell us a little bit about the new building overall. What do you foresee? What is your dream building going to look like?
Oh gosh, yes, I'm very excited about the new building. We're hoping to break ground sometime in the spring, early summer. They're projecting April, May timeframe. So, weather willing and construction schedules. But so we'll be seeing a lot more information about that. Probably one of the features that I know you and I both are excited about, Debbie, is we will have a community meeting space in that new building. So a lot of these education programs that we want to get out into the community, a lot of opportunities for people to come and engage with the shelter, even when it's not to adopt an animal. So we're very excited about the opportunity to serve the community in that way, where we can have classes to help people with the animals they already own, or we can hold classes on how to trap cats, or various things that we feel like would be helpful to the community with the animals that they're already dealing with. So that's very exciting. Of course, we'll have a larger capacity to house animals. With the growth of the county, it's going to present a growth of homeless animals. It just does. More owners to surrender animals, more strays. So we will certainly have to increase our housing capacity. But one of the other things that I'm very excited about is the way that we will be housing the animals will be completely different in a lot of scenarios than what we have now. Of course, kennels are still necessary, but we will be able to have 88 cats, I believe is the number that they're projecting right now, in a free roaming type environment. And all of those cats will have access to an outdoor screened in, secured area where they can get fresh air. So it'll be exciting, the changes in the way that the animals are housed.
And the prevailing thinking in the shelter community comes through with the consultants that the county has hired. The Shelter Planners of America have been greatly involved, and this is their expertise.
Absolutely. They've built hundreds of shelters across the country, and the expertise they've been able to shed on this has been very, I can't imagine trying to do this without them. They have determined everything from, what the Shelter Veterinarians Association says is best practice for square footage for every single cat, what square footage is needed for the people, whether or not people need natural light in their offices, natural light for the cats, natural light for the dogs. They've even thought of details about housing small animals, because as you know, we get mice and guinea pigs and other things like that. So they have an expertise on how to humanely house all of these different types of critters, and so we've been very fortunate to have their involvement.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. The education room is going to be so great, because that opens the door for summer camps for kids, where we can teach humane education to children in the community, because we have so many kids that want to come to the shelter that have a heart for helping animals, and so many of the things we do every day, we try to accommodate them in our current building the best we can, but it'll be nice to have that open up. Dog adoption and cat adoption areas or housing areas are different, and the veterinary clinic area is different. And isn't the air quality control important in a shelter? And that's one of the things that planners have addressed.
Absolutely, and that is one thing that I know when people come to the shelter, they can't touch it or feel it, but you will experience a difference because there is a lot of technology that actually goes into that air quality, and there's negative pressure rooms where when you walk in, the air sucks out, other areas where the air sucks in so that the smells don't accost you when you walk through the door. The air quality is much better for the animals, even to the point where individual cat condos can be vented separately so that cats aren't breathing the air that the other cats are breathing. So we have much less spread of upper respiratory and sneezing and coughing and all those things that the cats typically tend to pass from one to the other when they're just breathing recirculated air.
Yeah, it's part of the under part of the shelter that you don't see behind the scenes.
Right.
That there's 8 or 10 different air units, heating and air units that are keeping those air separated. And that's so important. If you do have one sick animal, that it's not contaminating everybody in the building. How will the adoption experience for people coming to the new shelter, how will that change?
Well, I will say the adoption experience obviously is going to be a lot different because it'll be much more interactive now with the cats. I mean, we do have a free roaming cat room in our current shelter, but it's just one room, and it's a little bit different experience. So now we'll have multiple free roaming cat rooms, and the majority of our cats will be able to be in those rooms.
People might be there all day if they visit every
They
cat room.
They might.
I want to go on the next one. No, on the next one, yeah.
Well, I tell you, I adopted a cat when I lived out of state in a facility that had multiple free roaming cat rooms, and that's how I chose my cat. I went and sat in each room until I found the cat that really gravitated towards me and fit my personality. So it is a great way to be able to interact with the cats on a different level than if you're having to interact with them through cage bars, obviously. So that will be totally different for the cats. With the dog area, it's going to be, we'll have a lot more natural light. Right now, our area has really no natural light to speak of. It's very loud in there. So it's going to be a totally different experience. One thing I'm excited about, Debbie, is we will have a self-serve stray hold in the new building. So if your dog or cat goes missing, there will be a stray specific area, and you can come in and walk through that stray area and see if your animal is there without, having to call or rely on somebody to give a description.
Yeah, and by the way, that's the best way. If your pet is, the best way is microchipping.
Absolutely.
And please register your information, because it's nothing more heartbreaking than us having a stray brought to us with a chip and not be registered. So
Absolutely.
People need to remember that, especially when they're traveling. And I tell people to take the collar off and write your cell phone number inside the collars.
Right.
Because if your dog or cat runs away at the rest stop, they'll have your phone number.
Right, absolutely.
There's nothing more heartbreaking than losing your pet. Another big event we're coming up this year is our second annual Possum Party.
Yes.
Last year we had about 250 people. This year we're moving it to the factory on March 28th. So what can we expect at the Possum Party?
Well, it's going to be bigger and better this year, Debbie. We are moving it from Thursday night to Saturday night, so, to try to get more folks who are free, there on the weekend. And we're really hoping for 500 people. So we've got the space, and we're having the same band that we had last year, a very popular band that everyone seemed to enjoy. There'll be a live and silent auction, full seated dinner, drinks. So we're excited. Mars Pet Care has partnered with us to help sponsor that event this year. So we'll have lots of fun, festive, just enjoy a good night supporting the shelter and with fellow animal lovers.
It's a great time to get together, and businesses or individuals can purchase a table.
Absolutely.
And then invite their friends who are also
Right.
animal lovers and support us that way. And there are different levels of sponsorship available, and all of that can be found at the friendsofwcac.com, and you can also buy tickets there.
Absolutely. So the tickets are on sale. You can get individual tickets. As you said, you can sponsor a table. I believe a table of 10 is $1,500, Debbie. And that will, get you your name on a table, and you invite 9 of your friends and come and have a great night. Drinks and dinner are provided with your ticket, and lots of free entertainment and
And the
fun.
Friends of WCAC is one of the groups that helped fund this part of the spay-neuter
Right.
enhanced program last year, the TNR program to return the cats. And Friends of has also provided medical help and specialty surgeries during the year for several pets that we couldn't
Absolutely.
provide at the shelter.
Absolutely. They help us a tremendous amount because, of course, we're a taxpayer-funded facility. So when I have a dog, for example, that needs a leg surgery that's going to cost $1,000, I really can't spend $1,000 on one dog. That's not responsible with taxpayer money. But Friends of is supported by animal advocates, and they will step in a lot of times and provide those surgeries. And it allows us to save the life of that animal.
And one of the things we run across often of the specialties other than orthopedic is eye surgeries. Need to go
Right.
to a veterinary ophthalmologist, and people don't realize how specialized the
Right.
field has become. And our vet does a fabulous job, but the facility doesn't allow her to go into more detailed surgeries,
Right.
specialty surgeries. So we appreciate Friends doing that. And all the proceeds from the Possum Party on March 28th will go back to the shelter to enhance our programs and provide new programs.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you being here and telling us all about exciting things to look forward to for the shelter this year.
Thank you, Debbie.
I hope our viewers have learned a lot today, and we've had a great year at the shelter, and we're looking forward to 2020 being even better. We always want the first place you think of when you want to adopt an animal to be the Williamson County Animal Center.